Alright you guys, welcome back to another video of our Sc430 rebuild. So before I take it into a mechanic to get the transmission looked at, I'm going to try a few things on my own to see if we can fix those problems. I'm also going to be replacing the brake master cylinder. So I'm going to be replacing that entire unit. And if you're new to the channel, this is a $2,000 auction Sc430 I bought. So I've just been slowly trying to fix it up bit by bit, and we're getting close to the end. The transmission problems and these brake problems are really the last things we have. So once I can get these sorted out, the car should be all set mechanically, and then, we'll do that last exterior and interior transformation, and the car will be done. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into today's video. So, got the car up on some Rhino ramps. So this is that brake master cylinder I was mentioning. So this entire thing is going to get replaced. All right, and then with the transmission, I'm not going to do a flush, so I'm simply just going to do a drain and refill. I'm also going to be dropping the pan. I'm going to check the solenoids and then fit up a new gasket and change the filter while I'm at it, probably. The gasket looks pretty bad, and I think that might be the cause of our transmission leak. So I'm going to go ahead and just drain the fluid from the drain plug, refill it, drive it about 10-20 miles, drain it again, refill it. But if by the end of this video, for any reason, the brakes still don't work and the transmission we're still having problems with, I will just take the car into a mechanic. Want to give a few quick shout outs. Thank you so much, Thomas Harris. I've seen your comments. I think you were there on our part 1 or part 2 video. So thank you so much for your continued support. Huge shout out to Brad. Thank you so much for that donation. And shout out to Ed and John Boy. Thank you guys for your continued support as well. So I'm going to be working on the transmission stuff first. I already have the car all set up. Start with draining the fluid. We do have a little bit of a transmission fluid leak. You can see a little bit of fluid. The bolt that you'll use to drain the fluid, it is a 14 millimeter. All right, so now I've got my trans fluid that I just drained out in this jug. I'm going to pour the fluid out into these little containers to see exactly how much I removed. All right, so it looks like we have pretty much exactly 3 liters, give or take. Okay, and so take a look at this. This is pretty crazy. I was just trying to confirm that these are all 10 millimeter bolts. This first one is already loose, so haven't put a wrench or anything to it, and it is already hand loosening. Okay, and I finally dropped the transmission pan. I couldn't get the pan removed. And it wasn't because, I had any RTV or anything that was actually holding the pan on. It was actually from the filter. I had unscrewed all of the bolts, so I'd gotten all of these out. The pan wasn't sticking anywhere. I could drop it about 1 inch, so about that much. But then on one side it got stuck, so it was kind of like this. This top side was hitting the filter. So what I ended up having to do was I had to unbolt the filter, so I took those 4 screws off. Then once I unscrewed that filter, the pan came out just fine. So you can see there is quite a bit of gunk in there. I think some of these, like especially this was from me actually trying to remove the pan. Must have just fallen in there. Fluid does look pretty dark. The gasket itself doesn't look as bad as I thought. Because I had seen the edge like over here. This was kind of what led me to believe that that might be where our leak was coming from. So, gasket definitely looks pretty old, so we'll get that fixed up. I'm gonna go ahead and empty all this fluid out. I'm gonna clean the entire pan, clean the magnets. I've got new drain plugs and some new bolts, so I'll be refitting all those up. Cleaned up pretty nice. Make sure this face is all nice and smooth for our new gasket, but here's just a little quick look. Also going to be swapping out this drain plug, so just want to confirm and make sure that these new ones are the exact same size. Yep. So now what I'm gonna do is just prep the face of this a little bit more. I'm gonna remove the rest of this leftover RTV. So then after I get the rest of the RTV removed, I'm gonna spray all of the bare metal with some of this epoxy paint. So this is that rust salt resistant, no primer needed, ideal for metal, aluminum, fiberglass. So I'm gonna mask the inside of the pan and just lightly do a few, like 2-3 coats of this stuff, just to make sure that the rest of that bare metal is all covered. Got this all painted so there's no more bare metal. I am going to be just doing a really thin bead of this ultra black gasket maker, ideal for oil pans, timing covers, transmission pans, and differential covers. So I'm just going to do a thin little bead of this, and then I'll put the gasket on. All right, so time to fit up this gasket. That's what's nice about this gasket maker as well, is it makes it so that way when you go to fit this back up, you don't have to worry about this gasket slipping around. All right, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna hop under the car again and I'm gonna try taking out the solenoids. All right, so I'll try to give you guys a look. Got a few of these solenoids out, and then I've got them all right here. And then there's one more over on this side, and the tab looks like it's pretty broken. So if you, let's see if I can get the camera over. So this last connector was broken. So see if I can zoom and focus on this. So this little tab right here, extremely flimsy. The connector also looks like it's pretty crooked. So anyways, I went to the Lexus dealership near me to see if they had just a connector, see if I could, just get a new one of those. But what I ended up doing actually was I just spent $80 or $93 and I got an entire new harness. So this one clearly was ready to go. The other ones might be close behind. So installing an entire new wire harness is going to prevent any of these other future, tabs or clips from breaking off in there. This is going to be coming tomorrow, so that's going to be the first thing I'm going to do is replace that wire harness and then start reinstalling everything. Testing out this first solenoid. So I've just hooked it up to a 12-volt battery. This one's good. So I'm just going to do that same thing with all of them. All right, so I just picked this up from the Lexus dealership. So this is that entire new transmission harness. I'm going to go hop under the car, take the old one out, throw the new one in, fit the solenoids back up, and then reassemble the pan. So I'll put the pan back up there, and then we will tighten it all up and refill the fluid. How to reassemble this harness. Looks like the main connector is right there. There's that connector. That little piece right there is what holds on that 10 millimeter bolt. All right, I got the new harness in. I also got all the solenoids in. So I replugged in and connected all the solenoids. So now I've got the new wire harness in. I got the solenoids back up. All I've got left to do now is put the new filter in. And here's a side-by-side comparison of those filters. So I'm gonna fit up this new filter now. Clean up all of these transmission pan bolts. A lot of these are pretty cruddy. Okay, well, I'm all set. I just got the pan fitted up there. I got everything torqued down to spec. So here's a look. Got the drain pan back up. So now I'm going to re-empty that jug. Here's the fluid I just drained. I did spill a little bit, so I'm probably at least half a liter up from this, but pretty much 3.5 liters and then 2. So I think I'm just gonna fill a total of 6 liters in for now. Let it run, and then I'll measure it and see if I need to top it off. All right, so we got the funnel in, about to refill it. I'll be using this ATF Type 4. This is what's recommended with all of these. I don't know what it is about working in a garage when it's raining out. I love it. Got some nice stormy weather. I did already cycle through the gears. So after I let it get up to operating temperature, I cycled through all of those. But so far, there's no leak. We would have already had a leak by now. Really, the only way to test it is by driving it. So we'll go see if we have reverse now. So That little beep sound is the sound of the door panel over there. What do you think of how it drives?
It is so smooth.
And there's not much wind noise.
No, there isn't.
So in the Mustang convertible, with the top down, you had a ton of wind, it sounded like.
Yeah.
But in this, you don't really have much at all.
No, that's true. It doesn't feel so windy.
Okay, shifts good.
Wow, it does drive so smooth.
I got up to about 50 miles an hour right there. Yeah, it's smooth. It is a super smooth ride. And even being lowered on those coilovers and with the aftermarket wheels, it is buttery smooth. Okay, so we're coming up on a little loop. So I'm going to test the reverse out right up here. All right. Well, I don't know if it really just needed fluid or if, one of those connectors on the harness was what was throwing that reverse. But we clearly have reverse now, and it doesn't feel like we're light on power at all. The leak looked like it stopped, so I'm gonna leave it in the garage for the next day or two. Since we have that epoxy floor, any kind of fluid just sits on the surface, so I'll be able to clearly see if it's still leaking. But as long as it's not leaking, I think we're good with the transmission. So in the meantime, I'm just gonna put a good amount of miles on this thing. I'm just gonna be driving it around for the next month or so while I'm still fixing it up, just to make sure that way there are no other transmission problems. But it feels good right now. Super exciting. I can't believe, man, it is hot. Good day for a convertible. I can't believe that we have reverse now. Pull it back into the garage and start working on the brakes. So I'm gonna replace that brake master cylinder unit, and then we'll go from there. Okay, well, here's a look. So I decided for the sake of time, I wasn't gonna make a video of me actually removing this, but here it is. I got the entire thing out. I am gonna be cleaning up down in here, making sure all these connectors are clean. And so here's a comparison. So this one over here is the old one that I just removed from the car. And this is the newer one I just bought. The car it was on had like 80,000 miles or something like that. So I'm just gonna be cleaning it up a little bit more. I'm cleaning the tank right now as well. It's a little reservoir. Throw that back on there, and then I'll install this new one, and we'll go through that bleeding procedure, and we'll test it out. I got the unit in. I got all of the brake lines connected and tightened down. I got all of the connectors plugged in. So we're pretty much all set. Now I'm just going to refill the fluid, do the bleed procedure, and then I just have to throw this piece back in underneath there, connect all that up, and then we'll be ready to test the brakes. So I'll go take it on one last drive later tonight, and we will see if the brakes are functioning. So fingers crossed, you guys. For those of you who have been here since our part 1 or 2 video, it's been a struggle. We've had a lot of problems come up, and it feels like they're never ending. But today, if we could get this brake unit fixed, if this is the problem, then this might be the day that our Sc430 is fully drivable. Be right back, and we'll go take it out on a drive and see. All right, well, sorry for the audio here. I did not bring my mic. I just got that entire brake unit replaced, and
They feel good.
all right, well, that's gonna be the end of this video. Thank you all so much for watching, especially if you made it this far. We now, I think, fixed the transmission problems. We now fully have reverse, no more leak, No more hard shifting or delayed shifting. And the brakes are all set. So the brakes feel brand new, as they should be because they are brand new. Could not be happier. I'm so happy with how this all turned out. You know, finally had a little bit of good luck. So now that this is all set, next video, we're going to be jumping into the fun stuff. We're gonna start doing the cosmetics again. So I think I'm gonna start with the interior. So next thing I'm gonna do is gut the entire interior, work on that, and then redo the entire exterior one last time with a bunch of other parts I have. So stay tuned, subscribe if you haven't already. You know, please drop a like, drop a comment, and I'll catch you guys soon.